right, let's talk about independent reading. So one of your long-term assignments for this semester is to read books that are not assigned to you specifically. Some teachers use accelerated reading. I actually don't like the accelerated reading program at all because especially for people who have high reading levels, sometimes it limits you to what you're able to read and get credit for, and I want you to read what you like. So what I do is I'm just requiring you to read a certain amount of pages per semester, and that number is 500. So you have until December 18th to read 500 pages, and those pages can come from any combinations of books that you want. So I've had people read, I had one kid who checked out a bunch of like 50-page books about hunting from the library, and he did those. I've had people read like car magazines. I have people read Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You know, like the possibilities are endless. I had someone read The Art of War, so it's like over the years I've seen book talks on all kinds of things. So I want you to read something that you enjoy and get credit for it, and not have to worry about like writing about it or doing work with it. You know, it's just reading on a regular basis, and studies show that that's a good practice to be in, to read regularly, even for a short amount of time every day, or you know, a few days a week. It's good for your brain. Okay. So what we're going to do is you'll pick your book out, and when you finish the book, you're going to use Flipgrid to talk about the book to me. And I've put the details here of what I want included in that book talk. And I will have an example on Flipgrid when you get into that assignment. So for right now, I just want to explain to you kind of the requirements. So this document is posted on the assignment. And it's just kind of the rules and regulations. I've had to edit it a little bit from previous years, so if you've had me before, it does look a little bit different because our schedule looks a little bit different. So you can choose any book that you want. I just ask that you keep it school appropriate because you are going to have to talk about it in your video, and I'm going to have to watch you talk about it in your video. So just keep it appropriate, please. Your book can come from anywhere. It doesn't matter where you get it from. I'm not really sure what our library policies are going to be this year, so we'll see. But if you've got a book at home or something, you want to borrow one from a friend, that's fine. If you want to read on an e-reader device, that's cool too, or your computer. Just keep in mind that if you want to read in class, you can't read off of your phone. So if your phone is the only way you have to access the book, you won't be able to read it during class time. This is a rule that is more lax this year than normal, because typically on a regular schedule we would have, you know, scheduled in-class reading time, and that may be something that comes about once most of us are back on campus later in the year. But for now, because we're in this strange schedule, you can read however you want because you're going to be doing most of your reading at home. Your assessment is just your book talk using Flipgrid. That's what we're going to call it, is your book talk. So your job here is just to convince me that you read the book and that you read it this semester and not 2 years ago. If you try and report on that book and I'm like, you know, I don't think you really read it, I may come up to you later or reach out to you later and be like, hey, will you answer these questions for me? Especially if it's a book that also happens to be a movie. If I just don't feel like you really read it, then I may follow up with some questions. I have had times where people came in, they did a book talk, and I wrote down, I don't believe you, and I didn't give them credit for it. So just keep that in mind. I need you to prove that you actually did read the book. So your Flipgrid book talks count as the equivalent of a major test, or your 500 pages count as the equivalent of a major test. So it's 100 points. And it's the number of pages that you read that determine your grade, not the number of books. So remember, it can be any combination of books. It just needs to add up to at least 500 pages. If you read extra, that's awesome. So if I have you on the block and you read more than 500 pages in December, those extra pages will turn into extra credit. If I have you for the full year, then in May, if you have read more than the 1,000 pages that we will read this school year, you'll have extra credit. Or the extra ones that you read this semester will roll over into next semester. So let's say you have me for the full year and you read 600 pages by December 18th. You're going to have 100 pages roll over to next quarter. You'll already have 100 pages in your account, per se, in January, so you'll only need 400 more pages by the end of the school year. And this chart here helps you kind of determine your grade. So, 500 pages is a 100%, but if you only read 382 pages, you're going to get an 84%. So this is what I use to grade it, so you can see exactly what you need to get. So if you're like, meh, a B is fine, then you could read 380 pages and be cool. Okay, but if you want an A, then you need to read at least 440 pages. So just keep that in mind. Also, I brought up Diary of a Wimpy Kid earlier, and magazines and things like that. Books that have a lot of pictures and books that are below your reading level, like significantly, like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And you can tell because when you open them, the words are a lot bigger. There are fewer words on a page. Those are going to count as less pages. If you read a great illustrated classic, literally every other page is a picture. So obviously that's going to count as less pages. So if you have a book and you see that it's got a lot of pictures in it, or that the words are bigger and there are less words on a page, there are a lot of poetry books that are popular right now and they don't have a lot of words on each page. Come show it to me, or email me if you're a virtual learner, and we'll talk about a reasonable page count, so you'll know exactly what you're going to earn if you choose to report on that book. You can complete them as quickly as you want. I've already talked to one student who said she's finished 2 books in the last week, before school started. So if you want to finish those early, finish them early. If you have all 500 pages done by the end of August, that's fine. You can go ahead and get some extra credit or get those extra ones done, and you won't have to worry about it later. Last thing, and this kind of comes back to that you convincing me that you actually read it. If you choose to do a book talk on something like The Great Gatsby or The Crucible, my first instinct is going to be that you were assigned that book and that you didn't choose to read that book. So I'm probably going to be harder on you because I'm going to be like, yeah, you read that junior year and you're just trying to use it as a freebie. So please don't do that. If you are actually interested in those books, that's great. You're just going to have to work a little harder to convince me that you read it this semester and not last year. Okay? So those are just a couple of the rules. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. This will be a long-term assignment, so it's going to be around for a while. And I would suggest that you just keep your book with you all the time, so that if you do have some extra time that you need to fill, you can just pull that book out and be making some progress in that. Okay? That's it.